For a number of years, CV worked at a daycare school and had many times heard stories about the ghost of a little boy who occasionally appeared there. For example, when a number of children were waiting outside for their parents to pick them up, he would stand among them, confusing the staff as to how many children were actually there. CV was skeptical about these stories, until a friend had a first-hand experience with the little ghost. On this particular night, CV, a friend and her husband were at the school helping to set up the kindergarten for the new school year. It was about 8 p.m. when the husband came in from outside and said that he had seen a little boy out there. He tried to talk to him, but got no response. He assumed it was the son of one of the other co-workers, and he told her that she should keep an eye on him because it was getting dark and cold outside. The co-worker just gave him a puzzled look and said she didn't know what he was talking about. The man looked toward the door of the back room where the child stood looking at him, and again asked the co-worker why she would let her son run around outside in the cold and dark. Now a bit miffed, the co-worker replied that she had not brought her son with her. As the man looked toward the door again, the child was now gone. Sometime later, an alarm system with video surveillance was installed in the school. One day the director called in some of the co-workers to tell them they had something on tape, CV says. They had actually caught footage of the nursery door open very slowly, then close, without anyone being there. The time of the recording was 3 a.m. and the alarm never went off. In 1993, Deb was in Year 9 at a school in a remote part of Australia. It was March, when the days in Australia were getting shorter and the weather cooler. Deb's class and the Year 8 students were enjoying a sleepover at the school. The school was called Kangaroo Inn, named after some old ruins that were nearby. The rock walls and a window frame were all that remained of the old inn, constructed and used during the gold rush, Deb says. Apparently the Chinese couple who ran the inn were buried under the school somewhere, but no one knew for certain. Deb was put on cooking duty, barbecuing sausages and patties for tea. At around 6:30 p.m., some of her mates came down to ask how long tea was going to be. As I was cooking the barbecue, she says, I heard a dog barking. There were no dogs at the school. I could hear the bark coming from inside. I was about to investigate when a little dog, a Jack Russell, I think, popped out of the wall. It ran around barking, then headed over to the tech studies room and ran through that wall into the room. This was no child's imagination. One of the teachers, who was staying with the children on the overnight, came out to find the dog he heard barking. Deb told the teacher what she saw, and the teacher replied, well, this school is supposed to be haunted, but not by a dog. When they heard the barking again, they all ran to the other side of the tech studies building. To their astonishment, the dog was standing half in the wall, barking. We couldn't see his tail or hind legs, Deb recalls. While we watched, an orb floated out of the wall, glowing green. The dog followed it, barking constantly. By this time, 3 other students and 1 other teacher were witnessing the phenomenon. Then dog and orb floated up into the air and were lost from sight in the darkening skies. I have never seen anything like this since, Deb says, but some Year 12 students supposedly caught video footage of a green orb earlier on, around 1988 to 1989. Also, some teachers reported being shaken by the shoulders or felt cold spots when locking up the school late at night when sleepovers or events at school happened after school hours. I guess my old school was haunted, but whatever was happening never hurt anyone, just freaked us out. Kate was also at a boarding school when she had her haunting experience. It was an American boarding school in England, a building that dates back to the 1600s. During Kate's first year at the school, her dorm was above an old coach house for the horses that was built near the school's main building, an old mansion. The coach house adjoins a strange, tall building that is also a dormitory. At one time in its history, The building was a convent, or nunnery, where religious nuns once lived. One night, Kate was up very late finishing her homework. It was about 2:30 a.m. and one of her roommates was still studying and another roommate was getting ready to go to bed. As I was organizing my books, we suddenly heard whistling coming from outside the window of our room, said Kate. The window looked down over a garden that connected us to the old nunnery building. Our room was 4 stories up off the ground, and the whistling sounded like it was coming from directly outside the window, as if something was hovering there. Too afraid to investigate any further, the 3 girls just sat and stared at the window, listening to the whistling. After a few moments it stopped. There was no wind that night, Kate remembers, and we could not have heard someone that clearly whistling from the ground. Besides, who would have been out at 2:30 a.m.? Many tales have been told that the nunnery building is haunted by a nun who committed suicide centuries ago by jumping from a window. Was she the one outside our window that night, whistling to us? I guess we'll never know.